Good morning. Welcome to the Quad City Chamber's Talent Business Forum. We're looking forward to a great program today. I am Mark Holloway, Vice President of the Talent Inclusion for the Quad City Chamber. We know that finding and retaining talent is a challenge for all businesses in the Quad Cities, as well as across the nation. I'm proud that I have recently joined the Chamber team to help build a talent pipeline to help us reach our goal to grow our population to 500,000 by year 2030. We recently launched Leadership QC, a program to tackle region-wide issues and also while enhancing leadership skills. By June, we'll launch our first 3 minority business councils to help inform the Chamber's work. We hope to have a Black Business Council, a Hispanic Business Council, as well as a Women's Business Council. We are stepping up to assist with apprenticeship programs and deepening our coordination efforts with educational institutions and aligning services to accelerate workforce development success, particularly those who have been historically underserved. And I look very forward to Intern QC. This summer, we will showcase the entire Quad Cities to our interns as well as to our future workforce. As you can tell, I'm very excited about the work, and we have a great future ahead of us. I want to take time right now to recognize our annual sponsors. They are Bush Construction, Mediacom Business Services, Unity Point Health Trinity, Warner Restoration Services. I also want to thank MRA for sponsoring our keynote speaker. At this time, I would like to share a message from one of our annual speakers, Unity Point Trinity. When we come back, Paul Rumler, President and CEO of the Quad Cities Chamber, will say a few words.
We're exhausted. We're frustrated. We're still at war with COVID.
Our teams are tired, and we're doing our best, and it's not good enough.
COVID-19 is not political, it's an illness.
And I lost 11 lives in 3 days. That has never happened in my whole life.
Leaving their kid without a parent or the spouse without a partner, and that's getting old.
It's tough. Every day.
To see people every single day literally begging for your help, and there's nothing you can do.
We're tired, we're stressed. Please get vaccinated.
Get vaccinated.
Get vaccinated.
Don't wait one more day. Get vaccinated.
Get your vaccine.
Get vaccinated.
Enough is enough. Get vaccinated. Help others to get vaccinated. It's time to end this.
Unity Point Health. Know how much you matter to this world.
Good morning, Quad Cities. I'm Paul Rumler, President and CEO for the Quad Cities Chamber. I really want to thank Mark for kicking today's event off. We're really fortunate to have him and Emily on our talent team. Thank you, Unity Point Health, for the message this morning. The last 2 years have been extremely difficult for everyone, and we know that our frontline workers are at our health departments and at our hospitals are working extremely hard to keep us healthy and keep us safe. As business leaders, we know that we have to do our part. And I'm really proud of the efforts that the Quad Cities businesses have been doing over the last 2 years to keep productivity up while also making sure that our workspaces are safe for our employees and our customers. So please hang in there. Please continue to encourage vaccinations and boosters. And as you're attending chamber events, we appreciate you wearing masks. We look forward to getting back in person real soon. I want to turn a little bit over to today's conversation. Just about every time that we meet with a business, that involves a workforce challenge. We know that you are navigating some unprecedented times of figuring out how you do more with less and keep up with today's demands, and supply chain issues and workforce issues are paramount on your minds. Today's business forum is one way that we're trying to provide some answers for you by bringing some experts to your doorstep or your computer. As the Chamber works hard to create a prosperous regional economy for all, we focus on 3 impact areas of work. 10 years ago, I would have told you that our focus needed to be on creating jobs and that companies and people would follow where those jobs are located. We know that in today's reality, that is flipped up on side its head. And today we have to focus on creating a place where people want to be. We're in a global competition for where people can live, and being virtual has accelerated that need to create place. And at the Quad Cities Chamber, we do that on a daily basis through many partnerships. We also then focus on talent, and we've stood up a new talent department that Mark leads to help attract people. We have major goals to increase our region's population, which will lead to more customers and more workforce. That will help lead to more jobs, and that's how we support existing businesses and help attract more to the Quad Cities area. And so I just wanted to give you a little insight as to how all this fits together in the Quad Cities Chamber. I'm really excited to have an amazing group of speakers with us today. I look forward to a great conversation and hearing their insights. And I hope you'll take away some key actionable items that you can implement within your business today. But first, I want to ask for a word from our Quad Cities Chamber Board Chair, AJ Loss, who with Bush Construction is also an annual sponsor of this event.
Welcome to the Talent and Business Forum. I'm AJ Loss, President and CEO of Bush Construction, an annual sponsor for this event, and I also have the pleasure of serving as the Chamber Board Chair. We're so excited about the Business Forum event series and glad you joined us for this first in the series. If you're like me, talent and workforce are on the top of your mind for 2022. So get ready for an engaging discussion with today's speakers that will help all of our Quad City businesses benefit from the perspectives they bring on talent and workforce matters.
Thank you, AJ. We appreciate everything you and Bush Construction do for our business community. At this time, I would like to introduce Jim Morgan, Vice President for Business Development and Workforce Strategies at MRA. Jim facilitates strategic planning sessions for businesses, chambers of commerce, and economic development groups, primarily around developing a talent pipeline for employers. Jim holds a master's degree in education and a bachelor's degree in education from the University of Wisconsin-Madison. If you have any questions for Jim, please type your questions in the live chat on YouTube. We will take questions following Jim's presentations and we will try to get to as many as possible. Jim, welcome. Thank you again for joining the Talent Business Forum.
Thanks, Mark. I appreciate it. And it's good to be here and be a part of the program today. I'd like to say that I'm joining you from the frozen tundra up here in Wisconsin, but since it's pretty much frozen everywhere we go, I guess it doesn't really have the same impact as it would otherwise. But anyway, it's good to be with you from Wisconsin. What I want to talk to you a little bit about this morning is I'm really impressed with what's going on in the Quad Cities and the leadership that the Quad Cities Chamber has brought to this issue of talent, and give you a little bit of background on where some of this has come from, because I think a lot of people have missed the background of how we got to be where we're at right now. So the title of this is really The Great Sansdemic, and good Catholic boy, had to learn Latin when I was young to be an altar boy. But if you're not familiar with the dead language, sans means without, endemic means people. And that's really where we're at right now, is we just don't have the people. And I want to share a little bit about that with all of you this morning, and then get into some pretty creative solutions that we've begun to see within our 3,000 members around the upper Midwest. So let me start here by just sort of giving you a little bit of a picture of why this is a little bit different. We've had talent shortages before. Usually it's been skills mismatches or certain industries couldn't find people. The difference that we have right now is this is demographic and not economic. And I think it's a numbers game that a lot of people really haven't figured out yet because it's been slow to brew. We've actually known this is coming for quite a while, but now it has really come into fruition. And it was accelerated a little bit by the pandemic. When I was putting this presentation together, my 6-year-old grandson was looking over my shoulder and said, "What are you doing?" And I was trying to, in my best 6-year-old voice, explain to him what's happening in the upper Midwest. People are getting older, people aren't coming here, people are moving away. And as only a 6-year-old could, said, "Oh, you're like the dinosaurs, Grandpa." And I guess that's a compliment. But yeah, that's kind of what's happening right here. So the dinosaur has become sort of the mascot for this presentation. So the world is changing here. If I had tried to find where do I go if I want to work remote websites 5 years ago, I might have found a couple. I do that today. These 12, 15 pop up right away, and there are literally hundreds more where people can go find jobs if they want to work remote. The world is just changing dramatically. These are all things that I've just picked up on in the last 6 months, and they're all related to this talent shortage. Needing the National Guard to drive school buses because we can't find bus drivers. A company in Southeast Wisconsin paying an $8,000 signing bonus if you started by last August and stayed until the end of the year. Everyone who interviews you is picking their days, picking their times, picking their hours. It's a whole different world on what's going on out there. Trying to figure out what today's employee actually wants. That a young engineering student who's going to get his first job is more excited about getting a $2,400 student loan payment a year than a $60,000 salary, because that's his biggest worry right now. All of us trying to figure out how do we hang on to employees. So a company is paying all of their employees $100 if another employee stays there for 6 months, trying to make the point that this is everybody's responsibility to try to hang on to folks. People offering just weekend shifts to try to get another shift in to try to get work done. A McDonald's in Atlanta paying $22 an hour with benefits. 3.2 million people who look an awful lot like me who decided to get out in 2020. The technology, the pandemic, all of that was, okay, I was going to retire, I'm going a little bit quicker. And 13 million people this year just deciding, I'm going to do my own thing. I'm going to go with the gig economy. Those are all things that have all happened in the last 6 months. Companies are offering all kinds of things to try to begin to differentiate themselves from everyone else. I'm in the Quad Cities. I'm trying to figure out how to hold on to people. So I'm trying to build the culture. I'm trying to pay competitively. And then I'm trying to find all of these other things that say, does this differentiate me? Does this get me people to show up? And trying to face a lot of people that probably look an awful lot like me that say, you know, when I had my first job, nobody gave me coaching, nobody gave me a gym membership, nobody gave me a Netflix subscription. What in the world is going on out there? And then if I'm in HR, this is Monday for me. My world has been turned upside down. I'm not only an HR director now, I'm a doctor, I'm a lawyer, I'm the person who has to swab noses. My whole job has changed over the course of the last couple of years, and it's a pretty stressful place to be. So all of this has been happening in the last 2.5 years. There would be no relevance to the presentation I'm about to make to you 3 years ago. People would have been looking at me like, boy, you're nuts. So here's what we're going to do in the next 30 minutes. One, to be honest, I'm probably going to depress you for the first 10 minutes while I explain exactly what's going on out there. But then hopefully end on an upbeat of saying, here are things that we're seeing companies do that are trying to keep them competitive, both in finding candidates and hanging on to candidates. You've probably already seen a lot of this, but this pandemic and this sansdemic has caused incredible wage growth. If people are jumping to other jobs, they're seeing 5, 6, 7%, sometimes thousands of dollars increases versus if they stay. We're seeing the employment cost index for you as an employer go through the roof here in 2021 and continuing into 2022. Percent increases for jobs to hang on to people it's been inflated as, quite frankly, the employees and the talent are now ruling the day. So let me start with buckle up. Here's the problem. Here's the start of the depression. This is working age population, 15 to 64, starting in 1950 and going all the way through 2090. You can see we peaked at about 2000, 2010 in that neighborhood, and then there's this continuous drop off. Each percentage drop is the loss of about 3 million working people. And as you look out to 2090, I don't know how people do that. They're smarter than me. But there isn't a single group out there that's studying this that's saying it's going to go back up again. So as a baseline, here's what's happening to our working population in the United States. So at this point, it's a numbers game. The talent has won. They run the day, and we've got to figure out how to adapt to them. We've reached a point where, quite frankly, we need them more than they need us. And that may not be completely true, but they know the bargaining situation that they're in. And so now you have people saying, isn't this great? We're at 3% unemployment. What a wonderful measure. It's a wonderful measure unless you're in human resources or unless you're looking for people. Because you know at 3%, we're almost at full employment, and that makes everything more difficult as we're trying to find additional people. So here's the bad news pretty fast. You're going to see a thing here between the Northeast and the upper Midwest that says this is sort of where the issues are relying right now, and here's why. Decline of young people, red is bad, blue is good. Good news for Iowa. A little bit on the positive, bad news for Illinois, and you can see Wisconsin and Minnesota in there as well. But even in Iowa, it's not an incredible growth for what it is that you're looking for. We're not the most diverse area in the United States. If you look at Iowa, this map shows the year that you match the United States in terms of ethnicity. Iowa looks like the United States in 1930. So if I'm someone of color and I'm looking for some place to go, this may not be I may not look at the Midwest and say, boy, that's where I want to move to. Whereas you look at Texas and California, they look like what we're going to look like 40 years from now. And that diversity thing cuts out a certain part of the population that maybe we're not a destination for them. That makes things more difficult for us. We're not a target for net international migration. Iowa, Illinois, Northern Illinois, other than Chicago, we've got Minneapolis, but that's not exactly the hot spots where people are saying, this is where I want to move to from another country. We're also not attracting domestically, that people are saying, yes, Iowa, Illinois, that's where I want to move, that's where I want to set up shop. They're making decisions for different reasons, and they're going someplace else. Part of that might just be culture. Part of it might be perception. I come from Wisconsin. What's the perception of Wisconsin? Usually it's a Monday night football game at the end of December where it's 40 below zero. Some guy has his shirt off at Lambeau Field with a beer in both hands and a cheese wedge on his head. I don't know if that's a good culture for us or not. But what do people think when they think of Iowa? What do people think when they think of Illinois? And how do we begin to change that? How do you as the Quad Cities achieve this goal of saying, hey, we want to have 50,000 more people here by 2030? We're not a hub. We're not Austin. We're not Seattle. Now it's the Carolinas and the Carolinas. One of the things that is pretty easy to figure out is, where do 25-year-olds want to go? They want to go where the other 25-year-olds are. And so how do we create the Quad Cities as that hub, as a go-to place for younger workers? We're getting older. The people that are old are staying here, and the people that are young are looking to go someplace else. How do we reverse that trend? How do we make Iowa and Illinois a hipster place that people want to stick around to be a part of, versus saying, once I get the opportunity, I'm going to go someplace else? And if they do leave, what's our strategy to try to get them back again? And we're not reproducing. We're not even holding even. For 49 of the last 50 years, the United States, we haven't been at replacement level, which is basically about 2.1 children per female. So, you're getting into people's personal lives here, but hey, we need everybody to have 3 kids. What do we do to try to make sure that we are at least breaking even? And I know, looking at the map and saying, what's going on in North Dakota, South Dakota, Nebraska? I don't know, there's nothing else to do maybe. But this is an issue for the United States as a whole, and it's adding to our problem. So that's the bad news really fast. But all of those things add up to what I'm about to talk to you about, and that is we have to understand the demographics behind this issue so that people understand this isn't going away in the next couple of years. These are long-term trends that we've actually known about and just haven't done much about. And now we've got the turnover in the labor force. You know, the baby boomers are dropping off. As I said, the retirements have begun to escalate. One, because we're getting older, and two, because this whole going remote technology, I'm not sure I want to deal with it, accelerated things a little bit. And you're seeing the millennials fill in right behind us and Gen Z not far behind them. And for those of you that are Gen Xers in the crowd, you can see that you were in charge there for about 18 months. And now one group left and the other group replaced you, and you kind of got squeezed on this. And then lastly, the goldfish is in there that, you know, maybe some of you have heard the story, but basically the goldfish represents the attention span of the Gen Zers. And that's just one of those typical stereotypes. You know, I'm a baby boomer, I'm the ponytailed anti-war protesting, never going to amount to anything group. And we figured it out, and every generation does, and every generation is criticized by the ones before it. But the goldfish thing is, while I don't think that that's their actual ability to, you know, maintain their attention, it does speak to some things that I'm about to talk about, that as technological natives, like the millennials, as people who are moving quick, who are multitaskers, it does change the way we have to go find people and keep people. So, end of the bad news, moving on to the good stuff. So in talking with our 3,000 members around the Midwest, these are the things that I was looking for to say, you know, what are the best practices here around candidate experience, onboarding experience, being an employer of choice, and adapting to some of the creative things that were going on out there. So let's start with the candidate experience. Especially if you're recruiting people 25 to 40, which is probably almost all of us. These are the digital natives. They grew up with technology and they expect it. And so if I'm a candidate for your organization, your company, what's my web experience? Because the first place I'm liable to find you is to look at your website. Is it up to date? Is it cool? If I look at it, I'm thinking, wow, this is a company that's up to date on technology. They get what's going on. Do I have a social media presence? Am I on Instagram? Well, why would I be on Instagram? I'm a manufacturer. Well, because the first place someone who's 22 years old is going to go to try to get a picture of who you are might be on Instagram. Are there pictures of people having fun at your place? Is there diversity? Is it a cool place to work? What's the impression I take away from that? If I've got a 15-minute video on the front page of my website, a bunch of guys from 1912 who started a company, I'm not watching it. I might be there for 30 seconds and be like, this has nothing to do with it. If it's 90 seconds long and it's fast moving and it tells me who you are, now you've piqued my interest a little bit. So what's that first impression? Your application process, is it simple? Because if I've got to fill out several forms, if I've got to fill in a PDF, if I need to upload my download, upload my resume, upload a set of questions that you've asked me, upload a cover letter, I may not do it because there's other places that are easier than that. And I don't want to encourage you all to go look for other jobs, but if anybody has looked for another job, there are places where you basically hit a button that says apply here and upload your resume, and it grabs all the information and it just fills it in. Your goal here is to get people into your funnel of candidates. We can screen them out later, but we got to get them in order to be able to evaluate them. And so now you're seeing companies that are saying, I'm not going to worry about the reference and background checks. I'm not going to worry about doing the drug testing. I'm not going to call the references. Reason being, we're trying to speed this thing up. And so I can check later, I can do the drug test later, but I'm looking at these things saying, how many people have we really kicked out because we called their references? Who are your references? The 3 people who love you more than anyone in the world. So can we speed this thing up and make it go faster? This is an Amazon world. They have grown up in that. They can track their picture, their gift or their purchase from the moment they buy it onto the truck, onto the next place, onto the distribution center, right to their front door. They're expecting the same thing from you. When are the interviews? When do you want me to show up? What do you need, Ness? What do you need? And for all of us that have been ghosted for an interview or ghosted for a job, that makes us angry. They feel the same way. I'll call you next week and let you know what's going on, and they don't hear from us for a month. They feel the same way about not knowing what's happening. Has the interview process gone quickly? 3 months ago, I said, if you can't get from candidate to the end in less than 3 weeks, you're probably going to lose people. I'd say we might be down to 2 weeks now, because the whole time they're looking with you, they're looking someplace else. And we've got to understand that that's what's happening. Are your interviewers prepared for this level of interviewee? It's a new generation. They're going to ask you questions about culture, about your DEI council, about their personal development plan, about how fast they're going to move through the organization. Your interviewers have to be ready to answer those interviewee questions because they're different than what they used to be. And lastly, I'd say if you haven't gone through your own candidate experience, put somebody through it. See what it looks like, see how long it takes, see what their impressions are, because you may learn some things along the way. What are we doing during that time period to really engage this candidate in coming to work for us? So we get the candidates, we hire them. What does that onboarding process look like now? Again, if they show up the first day and we have them do nothing but fill out forms, get administrative information, figure out how to use their computer, how to turn their phone on, that's not the best experience. Versus maybe they show up and they have coffee with their new manager. They join a project team meeting to see what they're going to be working on. They go out to lunch with the vice president of the area that's supervising them. There's a box of swag at their desk with a t-shirt and a mug and a thermos or whatever it might be that says to them, welcome, you're part of the family, it's good to have you here. Have they sort of been overwhelmed with, wow, this is one heck of an experience? Because I would say to you, in that onboarding process, the first day, the first week, the first month, that tells them what they need to know. At the end of that first day, they're going home to somebody and they're going to say, how was your first day? What is the answer to that question? Because the answer to that question probably is the best indicator of whether they're going to be there again on Tuesday and be there next week. So same thing as the candidate's experience. Have you gone through your own onboarding experience? Is it a bunch of lectures from lines of business just telling them what they do? Or is it an experience for them that makes them feel like a part of their organization? So now we're seeing companies say, we got to start treating our people as well as we treat our best customer. The last couple of years have been tough on people. And what are we doing to take care of our individuals? Are we checking in with them on a regular basis, 3 months, 6 months, 1 year? In essence, we're having stay discussions with them, not, oh my gosh, you're leaving discussions with them. We're looking at our benefits. Here's the most provocative thing I'll say all morning. It's not a benefit if I don't think it's a benefit. And what does that mean? Well, we've offered pay, vacation, insurance, retirement. Do those matter to everybody, or are they looking for something different? If I'm trying to attract an audience around the age of 25, I can almost guarantee you help paying off a student loan means more to them than a 401k. If I have kids, give me all the insurance you can, because I have a room named after me at the ER from the amount of time I spent with my children fixing broken bones and things like that. If I'm older, maybe it's about vacation. Companies are now trying to figure out, how do our benefits fit in to an employee's desire for a work-life balance? And I'm going to share some creative stories with you in just a minute. We're going to have to offer flexibility. That's what people are asking for. And short of, you're running a $20 million machine that weighs 12 tons, it's real hard for me to have you work from home. Excuse me. But people are looking at, are the hours flexible? Does it have to be from 8 to 5? Can it be from 10 until 7? Can it be during the night? Can it be at different times? People are trying to look at, how can we do things differently? And I'll give you some stories there too. And people are now leaving and coming back. The boomerang employee is real. So we're making sure that that employee experience is good when they walk out the door. Have you gotten to that point of being the employer of choice? It used to be you pay the most money in town, you're the employer of choice. Now it's a little bit more complicated. How are we doing in terms of explaining professional development, explaining what your track looks like here and how you're going to get better and how we're going to help you get better and how you can advance in this organization? Compensation obviously still matters. But at the end of the day, they're looking at culture and they're looking at, I want to work. This isn't about my not having a good work ethic, but I want to have a life too. I'll give you everything I've got, but I'm looking for you to meet me halfway here. So did you adapt? Here's what some companies are doing in terms of trying to find people. And hopefully, you know, if you can't do some of these, it gives you an idea of maybe how I can do some things different. These are what I would say are the ante. If we're playing poker, everybody's having to do these types of things just to get into the game, because these are the things that, you know, talent is looking for. And we've got to get a little bit more creative about saying, who are we using to recruit our people? How are we recruiting our people? And what are we offering to them that makes them come work for us? So here are some of the things that we're doing. Freelancers. The number of people who have joined that gig economy who maybe don't want a full-time job, we've got to start to adapt to that. So maybe I need a marketing director, but do I need a full-time marketing director, or am I looking for someone who can write, or someone who knows graphic design, or someone who understands communication? Because I might find two people that each have half of that, and they'll come work for me on a different time schedule. So opening our mind up to everything doesn't have to say full-time job. It can be in there, it can be available to them, but we might find two really good people who want to work a little bit differently and share that job. So what are we looking for, and are there different ways to go get it? Especially in the manufacturing world. Iowa and Illinois have some pretty good programs between the Department of Corrections and their Department of Workforce Development. You can get welding experience, you can get CNC experience. So there are companies now who do have this as part of their talent supply chain to say, we're going to work with our Department of Corrections, provide some skills while folks are working, and then we will hire them when they come out. We will help them make that transition out to try and get into a life where they don't go back to prison or to jail. They find the things they need to complete their life. And so this is a part of the strategy, especially for some manufacturers. Niche targets, and this is what I was trying to get to a little bit earlier. A couple of examples. An accounting firm that said, you know, there is a group of primarily women, because they are still the primary child care provider, who at some point have all of their kids in school. They may not want to work full time, but we've got them from 8 until 3 with a little bit of flexibility to maybe, you know, making it to school plays and soccer games. But they won't be full-time workers, but they are people who are experienced, they're mature, and they would be good for our organization. And they have said, we're going to put together a job here that fits that lifestyle. And so they have cornered the market, if you will, on women whose children are back in school. Another group looked at women whose kids were not in school yet, and childcare was a big obstacle. 5 jobs, 10 people filling them, with half the time being spent doing the job and half of them time being a part of a pool of people sharing childcare. So on the day I work, you take my kids. On the day you work, I take your kids. They filled 5 jobs. They solved the problem for 10 employees. They figured out how to meet their lifestyle. A manufacturing organization that, quite frankly, had a lot of workers that were interested in hunting and fishing and going north and ATV work. They offered them 5 8-hour days, 4 10-hour days, or 3 12-hour days. And they overwhelmingly took the 3 12-hour days. Yes, that was 4 hours less, but they can make that up on overtime if they want to. But the productivity they were finding in the 3 days was higher than what they were getting in the 5 days. And now you have a group of people who have a 4-day weekend to go do what they love to do, and they're going to have a hard time finding another employer that's going to give them that same benefit. So now they have a shift that's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and another that's Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So things people may have never thought of 5 years ago are now things that they're trying to figure out how to do. Finding diverse candidates. Often our HR department and our leadership team may hang out in the same places, may hang out with the same group of people, and so they're all looking for the same folks. How do we look in different places? Who do we partner with maybe to get a broader based and more diverse group of candidates? And depending on where we live, where do we have to go to find those folks? If they don't know that we have the jobs, how are we going to hire them? And so the diversity issue, one, because it increases our pool of candidates, but 2, because younger folks are looking for a diverse place to work, both in terms of what their gender may be, whether they're people of color, even just diversity of ideas makes you a more attractive place to work. People with disabilities. Many of us have hired people with disabilities, maybe for more altruistic reasons than productivity reasons, but everyone with a disability has some other ability. And companies are trying to look hard at what are those abilities and how do we fit those into our workplace as well. The retirees. We have 10,000 people turning 65 every day in the United States. And 65 is no longer the, well, now I'm done, I'll just wait to die age. Now it's, I've got another 20 or 25 years. What am I going to do? I love to fish, but I can't fish for 8 hours a day for 25 years. At least I don't think I can. So how do we hold on to people? How do we keep them around as project managers, as mentors? You know, young people have FOMO, the fear of missing out. I'm getting to the point where I have JOMO. I have the joy of missing out. I don't want to supervise people. I don't want to go to budget meetings. I don't want to just sit through discussions on things. I want to go do some things. I want to be productive, but I don't want to do the administrative. Is there a role for me, and can I stick around for a while? Using technology, at the very least, things like chatbots. You can't go to a website anymore where a little thing doesn't pop up and say, do you have questions? Can I answer them? Do you want to chat with me? Think about that in terms of keeping our candidates informed of what's going on, helping our HR department during open enrollment to be able to answer questions about what's the difference between a high deductible and a low deductible. Why is it only this vendor and not this vendor? I don't want to take the human out of human resources, but are things that we can do technologically that can speed up that process. Can we use technology with an applicant tracking system so that all of our candidates know where they're at? What are the opportunities that we have there? Who do you know? We all spend every day always with work on the back of our mind. Are we thinking about that in terms of potential employees as well? I've coached high school sports since I was 18 years old. I've hired 6 people that played for me when they were sophomores or juniors in high school. And I saw their work ethic. I saw their character. I saw how they worked as a team. I saw them come back and help with sports camps. I stayed in touch with them while they were in college. And quite frankly, 7 years later, if I'm looking for something, I go back and look at my team from 7 years ago and say, is there anybody in that group that has the skill set, went and got a degree in whatever I'm looking for that I could now use? I'm 6 for 6. They've all worked out really well. All of us do things like that. We volunteer at our church. We help with plays. We go on mission trips. Are we keeping our eyes open for who those people are? Because part of this is we've got to get to people before they're even looking for the job, because once they're looking, everybody knows about them. I don't expect immigration to be fixed during my lifetime, but we have a lot of places that are U.S. territories and other places like Puerto Rico, which has been a hot spot. Over 200,000 people have left the island to come to the mainland of the United States. There are states that have an ambassador to Puerto Rico whose job it is to go down there and try to find people and bring them back. And once you bring back 3 or 4 or 5, and then they bring their family, and then they bring their friends, and you have another talent supply chain. Right now, Puerto Rico is not the happiest place on earth, still because of the remnants of the hurricane and other things. So there are people that are looking. You don't have all of the work to do around immigration. So we're opening up our minds. It's not Puerto Rico. Can it be remote in Atlanta? Can I look outside the Quad Cities and look to other states? So people are starting to get a little bit more imaginative on where they look for people. Are we using data aggregators? Those people that can scrub labor statistics data, Census Bureau data, social media, and begin to more pinpoint who we're looking for, where those people are, where they work right now. It's scary what information is out there, but you can find organizations that can tell you exactly, in our case, because of a request, how many machinists are there in Waukesha County right now? How many openings are there? What's the average pay? Where do those people live so we understand commute patterns? All of that information is out there. This isn't an art anymore. It's becoming more of a science. And then we're seeing companies doing Uber hiring. You tell me when you can work and I'll find a place to put you in. We've seen it in nursing, as nurses were burnt out that they didn't necessarily want to work 40 hours, but will take 8 hours because it's better than nothing. people that are trying to fill warehouse hours. Someone comes in and says, I'll work Tuesdays and Thursday nights. Great, we'll take you. So it's become a real flexible, how do we fit people in and make this thing work? So those are some ideas. Hopefully some of those, if they can't be done the way I just described them, you're at least thinking about how does this apply to us. Short term, I would say everything I just shared with you are things that you could do right now. This list of things you could probably do tomorrow and begin to try to figure out ways to put them in place. Longer term, I would say the issue is, how do we get to people before they know they're looking? Co-ops, apprenticeships, internships, all of those things are your way of getting to an employee before everybody else knows that they're even available to you. So in summary, I'll leave you with this. It's a big deal and it's not going away. We can't just duck and hope we get through this one. We have to adapt, and hopefully some of the ideas that I gave you will be helpful. We are going to pay more for less. When you're talking about hiring people with disabilities, when you're talking about people that maybe haven't held a job before, when you're talking about looking in prisons, those are going to be higher maintenance employees initially, and we're going to have to figure out how to surround them with support and get things done. I would say to you, all talent does not equal. There are people that you need to have, and you're going to have to change your compensation to make sure you hang on to them. And if you do have those good people, I would say, for heaven's sakes, hang on to them, because there aren't an awful lot of people out there like them. And so once you've found a good one, it becomes more important than ever to hang on to those people and to make sure that they remain part of, who you are and what you're doing. So with that, that was sort of a machine gun of information. But if people have some questions and you've shared them with Mark, I'm more than happy to answer them now.
Jim, that was great information. I'm sure there are a lot of people taking a lot of really detailed notes. Thank you again. If you have questions for Jim, please type them in the chat box and we'll get to them as time allows. I do have a few questions here, Jim. Are there any unique factors in your research for this bi-state region that impacts the availability to attract and retain employees?
I think what I tried to share with that demographic data is this is what it is. We've got to figure out how to keep people in the Quad Cities, and for in your case, what are we doing? We're using the river. We've got an amphitheater. We've got a baseball team. What are we doing for the arts? Things that might make this a place where people want to stay. What are we doing on the diversity issue? I think it's the fact that you're starting a Hispanic group, a Black group, a women's group. Those are the things that say to people, you're welcome here. We're trying to get you to come here because we've got to overcome what may be a stereotype and what may not be true in Quad Cities, but it's what people, are thinking. So I think it's that conscious effort to say, the demographics are against us here. Who are these groups? Maybe it's the people who left the area. How do we get them to come back again? Those types of strategies are what's going to overcome what are kind of the natural numbers right now. Selling your quality of life in the Quad Cities.
That's a great answer. It leads me to another question. One of the questions came up is, how do you attract individuals who've retired? How do you attract them back into the workforce?
I think the step number one is don't let them leave in the first place. And so when people start to say, I think I'm going to start my glide path out of here, have that conversation with them. Well, how much do you want to glide? Because they may not even be thinking about, hey, we're thinking about opening this new organization over here, and we might need someone to mentor half-time. Or we've got some projects that you can do from your place in Florida or your place, out in the country. Let them know what's available to them. And as an employer, start thinking creatively about, if we hang on to 4 of our retirees at 25%, we have a full-time person there that we don't have to go look for. And so I think we got to get creative about how do we use some of those people.
So what are your thoughts about manufacturing, production, companies that typically have hourly workers? How do you encourage those individuals to stay on the floor?
I think there's a couple of things. One, regardless of what that job is, you've got to make it interesting. And I would say maybe even cross-train them to do different things. There are some jobs that are just almost monotonous by nature, and some that are very difficult physically by nature. Can we figure out how to have them do more than just that one thing? Can we incent them with different things to keep them, things that matter to them that they want to hang around for and go to get? Do we surround them with a support team that they've got a mentor, they've got a buddy, people who are talking to them on a regular basis to say, how's it going? What do you need? What's going on in your life? Those are the tough spots right now. And I think those are the ones that require a little bit more attention. And then is there a career ladder to the next step? That I'm not looking at doing this for 5 years. It might be 1 year, but boy, if I make it through that year, then I have access to this and then I have access to that. Take a look at why people are leaving and what is it we can do to try to maybe decrease that as a reason for folks to go.
Wow, Jim, that's a lot of great information. It's been wonderful to have you today. For all of our attendees, Jim's contact information and presentation deck will be emailed to all the attendees later on today. Jim, thank you for presenting today, and thank you to MRA for sponsoring our keynote speaker. Now, let's take a minute to hear from one of our other annual sponsors who helped to make today's event free for you to attend. Here's a message from MediaCom Business and Warner Restoration Services.
Not all internet is created equal. I know, because I'm a MediaCom engineer, and we've been building our network for more than 20 years. Today it runs coast to coast with more than 650,000 miles of fiber. So unlike those smaller networks, if there's an internet issue, we can reroute your connection and keep you running. Plus, we have direct roads to your online destinations, so you get the content and data you want faster. Not all internet is created equal. That's why more homes and businesses choose MediaCom.
It's about details. We make sure every little thing is addressed.
It's not about just putting things back. It's about being there for the people in the worst of times and being the company they can count on.
It's about teamwork. We have a comprehensive understanding of every part of the process.
It's about reputation. One call restores it all.
It's about serving. We have served our Lord and our community for over 30 years, and we are excited for the next 30. We are Warner Restoration.
Welcome back. Up next, I'm pleased to have representatives from the state of Iowa and the state of Illinois joining us to talk about talent and workforce. Joining us today are Beth Townsend, Director, Iowa Workforce Development, and Julio Rodriguez, Deputy Director of the Illinois Office of Employment and Training. Following their presentations, they will join me in an open discussion and Q&A session. Please enter your questions in the chat box and we'll get to as many as possible. Up first, Beth Townsend, Director of Iowa Workforce Development. Beth supervises various services at the Iowa Workforce Development that provides services to Iowans and has been in her current role since 2015. Previously, she served in the Air Force Reserves and retired as a Lieutenant Colonel after 21 years of active and reserve duty. Director, thank you for your service and thank you for joining us today. We'll turn it over to you.
Well, thanks, Mark. I appreciate the opportunity and glad to be here. And I will bring up my slide presentation. So we can, let me see, too many. Okay, there we go. I'm going to go through this pretty quick because I know we have a lot. We went to get to Julio's presentation. A lot of the information that you heard from Jim is similar to what I'm going to report. Just so you know, we are at 3.7% unemployment rate in November. That's been trending down. The December rate will come out next Friday. We have seen an increased number of Iowans going back to work, and that's always a good sign. Our labor force participation rate continues to increase, and we have always outperformed the national rate, but that is an issue that we need to address. So what are we doing? Because, you know, as Jim talked about, finding workers is an employer's number one challenge. So what are we doing at Iowa Workforce Development to help? Well, we're doing a lot. I hope that some of you had the opportunity, or all of you had the opportunity to listen to the governor's condition of the state speech. She's also been out doing a lot of press to talk about her plans related to workforce. And so some of the things that we're doing is expanding work-based learning in our K-12 systems. We've done a lot of work to address child care because that's a barrier for a lot of parents. We've got the Home-Based Iowa program that we have put more additional resources into to be able to provide assistance to veterans and recruiting veterans to the state of Iowa. Future Ready Iowa, registered apprenticeship. We have field offices, our American Job Centers around the state have a number of resources available to help employers. And then we have resources for helping you build your workforce. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the reemployment case management. So expanding work-based learning is the way that we attract high school students into the huge number of opportunities we have in the state of Iowa by showing them what it's like to work in various industries in their local communities. We do that through quality pre-apprenticeship programs. We're expanding the number of registered apprenticeship programs around the state, starting and maintaining internship programs, and then leveraging existing work-based learning programs like STEM Best and IJAG. We currently have 60 high schools that are participating in registered apprenticeship programs that cover 22 occupational programs and have 88 students. The benefit of registered apprenticeship programs in high school is it allows students to work while they're going to high school, and then when they graduate from high school, they will graduate with a nationally recognized credential from the registered apprenticeship program. Oftentimes they'll be well on their path, if not having earned an associate degree, free of charge through dual enrollment with their local community college, and have tremendous work experience. Childcare in Iowa has continued to be a barrier since even before the pandemic. And in response to that barrier, the state of Iowa has invested $480 million in childcare in just the last 2 years. That's state and federal money. So we had almost 13 million in childcare challenge and DHS grants to providers. Last year, that went up to 37 million in the last round that was announced last week by the governor. Those provide expansion opportunities, help bring childcare facilities to update their health and safety requirements, provide new equipment, expand the number of slots that they can create in their local community. These are driven by local projects. So it's local communities working with economic developers, employers, nonprofits, and other entities in the community that want to expand available childcare in their community. It supports programs in local and rural and metro areas as well. And then we're looking at how we can expand and support the childcare professionals around the state, because we know without childcare workforce, we can't do anything to provide childcare in Iowa. So we need to be looking at that as well. Home-Based Iowa is a program in Iowa where we recruit veterans and support them. We've recently hired 5 new career navigators so that every veteran who contacts Home-Based Iowa gets one-on-one concierge service through the entire hiring process. So within 24 hours of contacting us via email, phone call, or uploading their resume, they'll get a call from an Iowa Workforce Development Career Navigator that will help them go through their resume, get their interview skills up to date, find those jobs, find the areas they're interested in living, what kind of jobs they're looking for, and then make those connections directly. And we're hoping that with this kind of one-on-one service, we can recruit even more veterans to the state of Iowa. Last Dollar Scholarships is one of the biggest programs to come out of the Future Ready Iowa initiative that was passed in 2018. So far, we have over 22,000 recipients since 2019 when the program began, and have awarded almost $57 million. The Last Dollar Scholarships pays the difference between a community college bill for tuition and fees and non-repayable financial aid in high demand occupations. So very successful program in getting Iowans into high demand occupations and help build that skilled workforce we need so badly. We've also provided money in the Employer Innovation Fund and through our Summer Youth Internship Program. These programs, these grant programs on the slide were efforts by Iowa to provide dollars to employers to create their own training programs and to support those training programs, because employers know how and what they need in terms of training opportunities for current staff, and then to recruit staff into training programs. So we provided millions of dollars to enable employers to be able to do that. Iowa is a national leader in registered apprenticeship programs. Through the pandemic, we created an additional 138 new registered apprenticeship programs, which was second in the country, only to a state on the East Coast, and I can't remember which one right now, but Iowa employers continue to utilize registered apprenticeship as an earn and learn model to recruit new workforce, get them trained, get them a living while they're getting trained. It's a win-win for Iowans, and we hope to continue to expand this. Iowa is one of the few states that put state money into supporting registered apprenticeship programs, and we are currently working to contact every single local school district in the state to encourage them to create registered apprenticeship programs as well. Our field offices, we have 15 around the state, and then several satellite offices. We can help employers with job postings. We can help them understand that labor market information that Jim was talking about. You know, how do I best market what we do? What do I need to address to attract that workforce? What benefits do I need to highlight, or wages do I need to look at? We can do targeted hiring events, which we've done. We do them virtually or in centers or in locations wherever it's convenient for employers. We can help with that recruitment assessment. So employers are getting a lot of applicants, we hope, and if they need assistance going through those, we can help do that with our business engagement teams. We also can promote job openings through our social media platforms, which we continue to expand and promote through the state. We've developed the work-based learning options to attract the diverse workforce that Jim was talking about. We really need to make sure that we're focused on and dedicated to diversifying our workforce in Iowa. And that has to include more than a commitment vocally to do that. That has to translate down to our HR representatives, and we have to be committed and paying attention to diversifying our workforce. There's a number of tax incentives. We have a rapid response and layoff aversion program that we can help employers retain that workforce that Jim talked about. We also have reemployment assistance and then veterans preferences at our American Job Centers. And then employers, we talked about the various grant programs that we have available. I wanted to highlight Manufacturing 4.0 because that is an initiative by the Iowa Economic Development Authority to help employers pay for automation to get rid of some of that more mundane work in manufacturing that could be done through automation and technology, so that you can utilize the workforce that you do have into the higher skilled, higher tech occupations. And that's an initiative to help manufacturers do that, become more automated. Also wanted to mention the DoD Skill Bridge program, which allows employers to hire veterans who are getting ready to leave active duty. They can hire them for the last 6 months of their active duty tour. And then DoD continues to pay their salary and benefits, so they work for free essentially to the employer. And it's a great way for employers to try on vets, see how it works in their workforce, and then also for veterans to try on employers to see how they like the environment. Over 80% of the employers that utilize this program make offers and accept veterans at the end of their 6 month and when they get their discharge certificate. We also are offering workforce assessments. We've done over 100 around the state of Iowa, where we bring in a team of state representatives to the employer, and we go through what you're doing to recruit your workforce, and then come back to you with an individualized plan with follow-up about what we can do to help you navigate the state system, find those assets and resources you need to help grow your workforce. And it's all at no cost and at the convenience of the employer. And then first in the country, we've started a reemployment case management program where we're reaching out to Iowans the first week that they file unemployment claims to talk to them about finding that next job, because getting them through the process, helping them get their resume ready, find those jobs that are available. We have over 80,000 jobs available currently in the state of Iowa. So our career navigators, we hired 18 new career navigators, are reaching out to those individuals filing for unemployment and making those connections to help them move on to their next job, because that's really the purpose of unemployment, is to be a stopgap between jobs. And we need to work on shortening the amount of time it takes to get from one job to the next. I know that was really fast, and we're going to take questions at the end. And I look forward to doing that. So thank you for the opportunity, Mark.
Thank you, Beth. That was really great information. I really like the part about the apprenticeships. I know here locally, we have, on the Iowa side, we have 5 high schools working with our apprenticeship programs. And in the Quad Cities total, we have 9 schools working with apprenticeships, helping about 93 students. So a lot of great information. Thank you again for your presentation. Now, we will turn to Illinois. Julio Rodriguez is Deputy Director of the Office of Employment and Training for the Illinois Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity. Under Julio's leadership, the Office of Employment and Training has met or exceeded performance metrics developed nationally. They've been recognized for their training initiatives. They've secured over $50 million in federal funds to support programs, developed training policy, and led the design team that integrated new technology tools into the Illinois WorkNet. Deputy Director, thank you for joining us today. We'll turn it over to you.
Great, thank you. So first of all, I want to just thank the Quad City Chamber, Mark, and the team for inviting me. I'm so excited to be part of this. I'm hoping that my presentation I'll try to go through it quickly so we can get to questions. But my goal is really to try to do as much as I can to really start to think about how the 2 states can really work together to expand our abilities to help job seekers and employers. So what I want to start with is, if I can have my presentation brought up. Mark, I think we're... Terry? Because, yeah, it's advanced too far yet, so... There it is, thank you. So first of all, I just want to start off with some just general points. Is Illinois' unemployment rate as of this week is 5.3%. We've now slowly started to increase our ability to really get people back to work. Our workforce participation rate right now is at 6.3 or 63.4%, which is an increase of about 2 percentage points from the previous month. We know right now one of the things that our Governor Pritzker, has done is really launched a major sort of recovery plan. We've invested $1.5 billion into this effort. As you can see, the breakdown there, we're doing back to business grants. We're offering more training dollars with our state funds, and we're really beginning to think about how do we rebuild our downtowns and main streets. Also, how do we really expand our tourism? Many people don't realize that in Illinois, we've been a leader as it relates to tourism, and not just in the city of Chicago, but actually the state overall has been a leader in tourism around the country. We've actually launched many initiatives to attract more individuals to visit Illinois, and we think that's an opportunity to not just have people visit Illinois, but to also begin to think about relocating to Illinois. And then there's other opportunities that I'll continue to talk about. Next slide. So some of the exact programs we've been doing in Illinois as we've been trying to help businesses to recover from the COVID situation with what we call business interruption grants. local cure grants, back to business grants, hospitality grants, and really looking at our rural communities and really starting to figure out ways that we can help stabilize our downstate rural communities by providing grant opportunities for those communities as well. Next slide. Some of the grants that we've been able to put out, in particular in the northwest part of the state, which is where the Quad Cities are. As you can see, we've really targeted things like hospitality. We've looked at trying to provide broadband grants. We're really trying through our Minority and Economic Empowerment office to really try to provide small business grants to particularly minority businesses, African American, Latino, and women. We've also done some investment with our community block grants in that region. So as you can see, our goal is to continue to try to support businesses in a variety of different ways through these grant opportunities. Next slide. The other thing that we're doing specific in workforce is that we're really beginning to think about how can we make some state investments. So one of the things that we recently launched last year was what we call our Job Training and Economic Development Program. That's $50 million investment that will really look at how can we be more innovative, how can we look at specific populations that have been impacted by COVID, and really how do we create a different type of training program outside of our federal programs. This particular program has a unique feature that's called a Barrier Reduction Fund that really allows us and the applicants to really address issues like childcare, transportation, and even housing costs. The other thing that we've done is to really think about how do we move towards renewable energies. And Illinois has done a lot to really begin to think about how do we move into a much more energy efficient state, a state that really leads around things related to renewable energies. Next slide, please. To that end, we have created 9 different actual workforce programs that will tackle the whole energy and helping us transition to clean energy and to really begin to think about how do we take workers in the old sort of jobs that were related to energy and move them towards the new clean energy opportunities. And these are just 9 examples of programs that we'll be starting in Illinois this coming year to really begin to think about how do we meet the goal of the governor to be one leading state by 2050 as it relates to renewable energies. Next slide. Here are some of the services very similar to what Beth was talking about that Iowa does. We offer on-the-job training opportunities, incumbent worker training. I want to highlight incumbent worker training because it's not something that many employers think about, but one of the things that we really need to think about as an incentive to keeping workers is continuing to train them and upskill them. I find with many smaller employers, this is a great opportunity for them to incentivize their workers to go into management opportunities or just to expand their skill sets. Apprenticeships is a huge priority in our state as well. We also are looking at a variety of different things to expand our apprenticeships beyond sort of the traditional trades and really looking at IT, manufacturing, and healthcare. Customized training is another area we can really be supportive to small businesses in particular and help them to really train and upskill their workers as they get new machinery, as they look at automation and other things. Our rapid response services is another way for us to address the issues as it relates to layoffs and helping workers to quickly move on to other jobs as the opportunities present themselves. And then I'll talk more specifically about job fairs and virtual opportunities that we've begun in the state of Illinois. Next slide. So here's some things that we specifically do for businesses. Again, helping with recruitment, screening, hiring, working with your HR departments. If you don't have an HR department, our local workforce areas can be a real partner in helping you to establish good hiring practices and creating that sort of partnership around recruiting and hiring and increasing the skills of your workers. We provide referrals to other types of programs within the system, things like childcare, looking at other programs related to helping people with disabilities, helping workers, helping employers to actually think about how their work sites can actually be places where people with disabilities can be productive and can be hired to help meet your employment needs. And again, customized training and other services that we provide to employers. Next slide. So our virtual job fairs, we started these early on during the first couple of months of the pandemic. To date, we have actually helped 700 plus employers create virtual job fairs. We've served over 13,000 individuals through our virtual job fairs, and we have actually had posted 41,000 jobs on our virtual job fair site. We're excited about our virtual job fairs because they've been a great way for us to really address the issues of not being able to meet with people in person. And one of the things that we hear over and over again from both employers and job seekers is that it has been a great way for employers and potential employees to really get to know each other and to really sort of learn about what are the real opportunities within a particular sector like manufacturing or IT. We've also used this strategy to particularly target groups like veterans. During Veterans Week, we really spent a lot of time throughout the state setting up regional job fairs specifically for veterans and connecting them with companies that were particularly interested in hiring veterans in their workplace. So we really see virtual job fairs as a strategy that we want to continue to build on. Next slide. Apprenticeships. I think the biggest thing I want to say here is that we as a state have over 16,000 apprentices throughout the state of Illinois. We continue to expand our efforts here. We are investing in what we call apprenticeship navigators to help particularly small companies and medium-sized companies think about how they can establish apprenticeship programs, connecting them with the appropriate education partners, and really think about how we can support them as they build their apprenticeship programs. The other thing that we were able to do in Illinois is set up a specific tax incentive for businesses that can help them offset some of their costs as it relates to apprentices. And as you can see there, we offer $3,500 per apprentice plus a $1,500 extra bonus if you target particular populations that are underrepresented in your particular sector or are applicants who need to be targeted because they're an underserved population, such as people with disabilities, the reentry population, and veterans. Next slide. So again, one of the things we also did in Illinois is using technology. We've created an Illinois Business Hub. And again, this is a way to help with your recruitment, help you connect to labor market information in your area, different tax incentives and grants, learn more about apprenticeships and work-based learning. And we can also help promote different events that are going on in your communities, whether they're hiring fairs, where their campaigns local businesses are doing to attract talent, and again, to also link it to state agencies and other partner agencies that do workforce development. Next slide. We do have a set of success stories, and we have a publication. We work very closely with our 22 local workforce areas, and they do an annual awards project that actually identifies key success stories, not only with job seekers, but with businesses. And we'll encourage you to go to our Illinois WorkNet site to see some of our success stories. We've had a number of them within the Quad Cities, and we're very excited about a lot of the work that they do there, and we want to highlight those as much as we can. Next slide. Here's just the contact information to the folks that do all of our economic development work within the Department of Commerce. And I wanted just to have you know them. We also have a program called our Community Navigator Program, which really reaches out to businesses and helping them to learn more about the services that are available to, particularly for small businesses and minority-owned businesses. Next slide. Here's my contact information, my regional manager's contact information, and then next slide. And here's the people that you can reach out to directly in your local workforce area and in the Quad Cities. Mark Lohman, our executive director of our local area there. As you can see, these are the counties that he serves. And we're very excited about the fact that Mark has been a real leader, especially in our reentry initiative in the Kewanee Correctional Center. So I'm going to turn it back to you, Mark. I tried to get through that as fast as I could.
Well, you did a great job. I appreciate both you and Beth's presentations, a lot of great information. I'm really excited about this because I believe this is the first time that we had both Iowa and Illinois together talking to our businesses. I know that the chambers worked really hard to put this together. And so now we kind of get the opportunity to ask some questions that businesses have. So we talked a little bit about childcare, some about transportation, affordable housing. Really, these are all variables in deciding whether or not to seek employment or not. What strategies are the states considering to assist in each of these areas? Beth, I'll start with you, and then I'd like to hear from you, Julio, after that.
Well, in terms of the childcare, I talked about the $480 million we've just put into childcare in the last 2 years. So I was making a big push to address and create more slots, but also increase and support our workforce. The governor announced, DHS has announced that there will be retention bonuses for childcare workers that have just been posted. In terms of housing, the IEDA is overseeing a rural housing initiative grant program. So we do have various grant programs in the state of Iowa that support providing and building more housing, especially in our rural areas where we seem to have, advanced manufacturers and no housing. And then transportation, that is an area that we have continued to address through the Employer Innovation Fund by helping employers come up with unique ideas to be able to get workers into their work, in and out of their workforce. And we're continuing to look at new ways that we can support employers in those efforts.
Thank you, Director Townsend. Deputy Director Rodriguez?
Yeah, one of the things is to go back to our JTEC program. One of the things, key components of that is a barrier reduction fund. One of the things that we've recognized is that oftentimes childcare, transportation, and housing become real barriers to people who want to go to work, have the ability to, an employer who wants to help them get on the job, but these barriers continue to come up. So these programs are actually 2-year programs. So they really help the person really figure out their childcare, transportation, and housing issues through a long-term case management process and working with employers to really figure out how do you address these needs, not just in the beginning, but oftentimes what we find, and I'll use transportation as an example, is a person may have a great car when they start their job, and then 6 months into it, they have an issue with their car. These barrier reduction funds can help support somebody fixing their car to ensure that they can continue to go to work. Same thing with childcare. We know that childcare gets disrupted many times, and especially now with the COVID and schools opening and closing and just kind of this ebbs and flows, trying to find ways that we can support individuals and families to continue to have a steady stream of funds to help support them around childcare. We think those are one of the ways is building these types of barrier reductions funds right into workforce programs to really help support people, not just in the beginning when they get a job, but throughout the first 3, 4, 6 months of their employment.
Thank you so much. Director Townsend, according to your presentation, really Iowa's almost reached, has a high labor force participation rate. What guidance would you give our major employers who are still struggling to fill their job openings?
Well, like I said, I would urge them to take advantage of all the resources we have available to assist them. I think Jim gave some really great ideas in terms of how to expand recruitment philosophies, because we've seen that all over the state with employers doing exactly that, expanding, providing new benefits, unique opportunities, flexible work schedules. The telework option that's been developed during pandemic is a great option. We do on iowaworks.gov, where all the job postings in Iowa are located, have a section dedicated specifically to telecommuting opportunities. So if that's how you're hiring workers, we can highlight that for you and make it easier for individuals who want to stay home but continue to work to find those jobs. So I guess my best advice would be creative, be thinking about new opportunities and new ways. Jim's exactly right. This is not your father's, in workforce, or even last year's workforce, 2 years ago workforce. This is, we need new and original recruitment strategies, and we can help you develop those, especially through those assessments I was talking about.
Thank you so much. Deputy Director Rodriguez, can you please share with us some guidance and best practices for businesses not located in the Chicagoland area and how they can attract and retain talent?
So one of the things I think in terms of attracting talent is starting earlier in the schools. I think we really, it used to be that we sort of thought of high schools as where we begin. But the reality is we really have to start younger. We have to really expose young people to jobs and not just sort of the traditional jobs. What I'm really excited is I'm seeing more and more elementary schools expose kids to jobs that they didn't even know existed in manufacturing. We don't really do a very good job of marketing to young people early on. Everybody knows what a doctor and a police officer is, but they don't know what an electrical engineer is. They don't know what an IT specialist is. And really helping young people to see opportunities that are right there. I also think we don't do enough to talk about why our region is one of the quality of life is such a big thing when it comes to why people want to stay someplace. And I noticed that Jim talked about Puerto Rico. There are so many parts of that region that mirror parts of Puerto Rico, and I'm Puerto Rican, and I can just tell you, when my dad came to the United States, he picked Chicago partly because he took a drive outside of the city of Chicago and saw places that looked like places that he had grown up with. And he saw huge opportunities, and with somebody with limited language skills, he wound up going into the transportation field and actually learned to be a mechanic and eventually an engineer. So I think it's really exposing young people earlier, and then looking at populations that sometimes we don't do a good job of really showing them the quality of life that are in our regions. Especially, quite frankly, if you look at the Kewanee Correctional Center, is starting with those individuals and not having them leave this area, but also giving them opportunities to really work as part of a reentry program. And, having more workforce centers right in those correctional centers is our goal here in Illinois.
Great. I have one last question, and both of y'all can answer this. How can companies work to achieve gender pay equity? Deputy Director Rodriguez, I'll start with you, and I'll.
Well, I think that's really a decision that they have to really look at if they're really looking to try to hold on to women and continue to advance women. I mean, one of the things that we're seeing in particular with women of color is that many of them sort of hit that glass ceiling, and many of them go on to start their own businesses. I think we have to have a much more competitive conversation about wages, and more importantly, I think in particular for women, they want opportunities to be entrepreneurs. I think what we really have to do is to really think about, as a sector, whether it's manufacturing, IT, or healthcare, how do we create an entrepreneurship sort of workplace where people really feel that they can develop and create their own ideas? And who knows, they can be part of your supply chain if not your employee. But I think we really, in particular for women really want to have more of a decision-making role, not only just in advancement of their salaries, but also opportunities to grow as individuals and potentially grow as business partners. So,
thank you so much. Director Townsend?
Well, Mark, I think, it's the law, number one. You have to pay women and men the same wage for doing the same occupation. Of course, there are a number of factors that go into pay. And so I think Julio's right to point out that what we need to be talking about with regard to women in the workplace, especially after the pandemic and the disruption that they faced, having to stay home a lot of times with kids. In Iowa, we've been back to school for 2 years, but we need to be making our workplaces more flexible and meeting them where they are. So a lot of women and young mothers would like to go back to work, but they want to work mother's hours, so that they can be there before and after school. So, and I think employers are at a point now where they would be more than willing to take anyone who will work whatever hours they have available. And so I think what we need to do as employers is make that known, market to single mothers or to young mothers, or and talk to them about, hey, you tell us when you can work and we'll build a program around you to come in and do what you can do when you can do it. And that's the strategy that you can use with the disabled. That is the strategy that you can use for returning citizens. That's a strategy you can use with retired individuals who are thinking about coming to back to the workforce, but maybe they don't want to work every day and they don't want to work full time. Well, let's take advantage of when they are available. And I think with women, it's no different, and probably even more important now that we really make that an area of focus for employers when they're trying to recruit women into the workforce.
Thank you both so much. This has been a great discussion. Director Townsend, Deputy Director Rodriguez, thank you again for joining us today. We appreciate you taking time to provide us your updates on Island, Illinois, and the valuable information you provided to our businesses. Thank you again to all today's sponsors who made this event possible. Our annual sponsors are Bush Construction, MediaCom Business, Unity Point Health Trinity, Warner Restoration Services. Thank you again to MRA for sponsoring our keynote speaker. Today's program was just one of the resources that the Chamber provides to support businesses. As a reminder, you will receive an email today with a quick survey asking you for your feedback on this event. The email will also include all the speakers' presentations and contact information. Today's program will be recorded and will be available on the Chamber's website. And we're also providing additional information as well. Thank you, and I hope you have a great rest of the day.